Hey everyone, this is Cappy, and you're listening to Just the Plate, a production of Beyond the Plate. Just the Plate is a short segment where chefs describe a dish or a recipe that is meaningful to them. This is a bonus Just the Plate episode, everybody. Earlier on in this season, when we did our Rachael Ray episode, she couldn't decide between two Just the Plate recipes. We wound up doing a surprise pasta dish, if you remember, where I wrote down a few ingredients and she created a dish off the cuff, which was pretty fun. But the other one she was going to do, we are going to air today. It is a egg crepe or crepe egg, whichever way you want to call it. We've been holding on to this bad boy, and it's a good one. It's a recent obsession of hers. I'm not going to explain who Rachael Ray is because chances are you know who Rachael Ray is. Cookbooks, TV shows, magazine, Rachael Ray home line, charities, etc., etc. But for now, her egg crepe, as I said, it's a recent obsession. It's a pretty good idea for someone who may be gluten intolerant, or if you're cooking for someone who's gluten intolerant, but also it's really good for anybody, to be honest. You could get super creative here. She gives like 2, 3, 4 variations for how she fills this egg crepe. Essentially, it's like a really thin egg omelet, if you will. So fill it with whatever you like to eat an omelet with, or a crepe, to be honest. Sweet, savory, you could go either way. But listen in, get inspired, get creative. I'm going to stop talking. This is Just the Plate. Crepe eggs.
All right, so crepe eggs. People are so scared of making crepes, and you got to make the batter, and then do you let the batter rest, and how long, and you get the swirl, and can you flip it? More often than not, because so many of my friends have gone gluten-free, either by necessity, of course, biologically they can't process gluten, or just by choice. You know, it's very trendy now. A lot of people use it as a technique to help them lose weight and to give themselves more discipline when it comes to their diet. For whatever reason, I started making egg crepes. And the method I use to do this is a nonstick skillet over moderate heat, with butter in the pan, good butter.
Small, like 8-inch small or medium?
10-inch, because you're going to end up with an 8-inch crepe per person. So a 10-inch skillet and 2 eggs per person per portion. It's a method, and then I'll tell you a bunch of different ways that I fill it, okay? So you use 2 eggs per person, and you whisk them until they're just frothy. A little salt. Pepper is up to you. It depends on what you're doing with it. And herbs are up to you. Depends on what you're doing with it. But basically, it's a moderate heat 10-inch skillet, 2 eggs till they just get foamy. Pour it in the pan. That's why the heat has to be like medium-low. I do just above medium-low. And then you just start swirling it around the pan just like you would a crepe. But you never have to flip it. You have to deal with that. Okay, so you just stir it around in the butter, swirl the pan by rolling your wrist, pick it up off of the stove, to be specific. Roll your wrist and swirl the egg around so it gets super thin and looks like a crepe. When it starts to bubble on the top, little bubbles pop up across the surface of the egg. It's like a paper-thin omelet. Take it off the heat, and then you fill it. Now, here's how many different ways we can do this. The first time I ever did this, I made an egg crepe because I had gotten a fabulous thank you gift from friends of mine, this huge array of insanely good, perfectly ripe French cheeses. So I had many soft and semi-soft choices, and I thought, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with these? There's cheese everywhere on everything. Yay! So with some of these soft, ripe cheeses, I took the crepe, I added minced chive and tarragon, very, very finely chopped chives and tarragon, salt and very fine, just a grinder to a very fine black pepper for every 2 eggs. I put it in a fat tablespoon of butter to make the one crepe. And then I put the sliced, soft, ripe, I forget if it was camembert or brie, but it was something like that. A few slices of the ripe cheese with the soft rind still attached right down the center of the crepe, and topped that with these beautiful organic blueberries and folded it over. So it's this herby, slightly sweet, but not cheesy, like insane. And then you flap it over, so, on each side, so the filling is sticking out the top. It's like an open-ended burrito. Think of it like that. So you see all the beautiful filling coming out the top of it, and then it folds over kind of like an envelope on the bottom there. And then I just put a small pick in it to keep that kind of together because it's not as starchy as an actual crepe. So that was the first one. Then I did like a croque madame, but no bread. So I made a super, super thin plain egg omelet with just a little salt in it, in good butter. And when I pulled it off the heat, I put bechamel, so equal amounts of butter, and that one does have a little flour, obviously, to thicken the, to make a little roux. And I put the milk in it, but you could also use another starch, potato starch or something. So we thicken that a bit, or you could just thicken heavy cream with white pepper as well. That works. Salt and a little white pepper. I put white pepper and nutmeg in my bechamel, so I put a little bechamel on the top of the egg, some sliced French ham, very mild cooked ham, in other words, and a little shredded Gruyere between the two. So the white sauce, a little Gruyere, the ham, fold over the edges, and that was the French style. Then I did a brown butter one. I browned the butter in the pan first, added my 2 eggs with very finely slivered couple of leaves of sage in the brown butter. And that one, I put prosciutto, a very thinly sliced reserve prosciutto di Parma in it, and an arugula salad with shaved parm, and lemon juice and a drizzle of olive oil on top of the ham, and then folded those edges over. So it was a brown butter, sage, prosciutto, arugula salad.
Sounds amazing.
Crepe egg. Yeah, it's a really fun trick.
And I mean,
you
tomorrow.
could just go cuckoo with it.
Yeah, I'm going to make them tomorrow for sure. But I have a question. I know the answer, but explain. You don't flip it, you said. This thing is so thin, it's basically cooking through, right?
It's so thin, it's cooking through. As soon as it gets steamy on top, the egg's going to be fully cooked because you're putting toppings on top of it and folding it over like this. I'll show you. I made a little doodle when I started making crepe eggs. I'll show you the way it looks. But basically, it looks like one of your 2 beautiful children when they were first wrapped swaddled.
Yeah.
It looks like you're swaddling your filling with a very, very thin omelet. And I put those little lightweight bamboo toothpicks with a little knot on the end.
Yeah.
I use those. They're like 50 cents a bag, on Canal Street or at any like cookware store. I get some of those super lightweight toothpicks to kind of hold it together. But they're brilliant, and you can fill them with anything. I'm so obsessed with crepe eggs. Thank God that I have all these friends that can't eat gluten anymore. I never discover these little fun things.
Huh.
I'm sure what's so sad about anybody who works in food. Anytime you think you're brilliant, you're thrilled to yourself, like, oh, this is so smart. You Google it, and this is why I've stopped doing this. And there's 9 million other people that came up with the same brilliant idea as you, and you're like, oh my God, I'm rocked up.
Yeah.
So now I write what I want, and if it's out there, it's out there, and if it's not, it's not.
When I was in culinary school, I made a family, a dish we have. It's a family tradition, and there's the doodle. Okay.
So the stuff, you can see the filling up here, and you just fold in the 2 sides, and I make it a little more narrow down here, but it's just flat on a plate.
Yeah.
Like you don't pick it up, you eat it with a fork and a knife.
Yeah.
But you get the idea.
Yeah. I like that. When I was in culinary school, I made this dish. We always have it at family functions. It's a layered dip, goat cheese, sun-dried tomato, pesto. It's really good. And I made it in one of my culinary school classes, and my chef came over. He goes, I like that one, Kaplan. He goes, I think I'm going to take it for myself. He said, a good chef always knows a great idea when he steals one. So
that's so great.
Yeah.
I love that.
Awesome. Crepe eggs, 55 ways. Thanks. Find more on Rachael Ray by Googling Rachael Ray. Kidding. Find her at rachaelray.com. This episode was produced by myself along with Ian Cohen and Joel Yeaton. Find me and keep up to date with this podcast across all social media platforms at On Cappy's Plate or go to beyondtheplatepodcast.com. Beyond the Plate is on Twitter at BT Plate Podcast and Facebook. Please rate and or review and maybe subscribe to this podcast on your listening site of choice. Thank you for listening to Just the Plate, a production of Beyond the Plate. I'm Cappy.